Good Friday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Things not great as far as injury news coming out of Berea. The Browns rule out center Ethan Posick with a stinger, safety Juan Thornhill with a calf, Agbo Okunrankwo, his pectoral muscle, and Jordan Kanasic with his calf. Additionally, Denzel Ward, shoulder, Jordan Elliott, and Anthony Walker, who tweaked his knee in practice today, are all listed as questionable for the game Sunday against the Bears. Head coach Kevin Stefanski talked about being down now his 3 top safeties with Delpit, Thornhill, and McLeod all out.
Yeah, there's some guys that we trust back there, Mary Kay, that have given us good reps. There's some, we have different options and combinations that we can work through. But bottom line is that's why these guys work so hard throughout training camp, throughout the season, to stay ready, because you never know when your number's going to be called.
If Obo can come back?
We are, yeah. No final confirmation just yet.
How has Denzel progressed since your initial review?
Yeah, I think he continues to progress. Every single day I think he's getting better. We'll use the next 48 hours to see whether he can make it.
Anthony was added as a questionable. Would something come up?
Yeah, something came up, tweaked something, but we'll see how he does over the next again. We'll see how it goes.
Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. And Jeff, so if you're keeping score at home, you're on your 4th and 5th tackles and your 4th and 5th safeties. There's not much you can do. You go out and you play, and you make it as ugly as you can, and you try to find a way to win.
Well, I mean, when we talk about the Browns' 4th and 5th tackles, this is going to be Jerron Christian's 6th start for this team. So it's not like, look, we're not saying, trying to claim that he's somebody who's going to be, your left tackle of the future here, but had a former relationship with Bill Callahan. This is now his 6th start for the Browns. So, I mean, I think you're going to get a good version of him as you possibly can. Hudson, he's obviously started a lot of ball games. It is interesting that the Browns had such a great 3 safety look, and it was something they were using a lot. And unfortunately, now you have none of those guys. But there was a lot of missed practice time, and certainly a lot of missed practice time for Juan Thornhill over the last 2 to 3 weeks. So it's not like Ronnie Hickman hasn't gotten practice reps, and you had a nice PBU last Sunday, of course, against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not very, again, with the Joe Flacco thing, like we talk about with him coming in as your 4th quarterback, when you got to bring a practice squad safety up, we normally talk about, a 22-year-old kid from, East Valley Passaic Tech, not a 3-time Super Bowl champion, and Deron Harmon, who's been in, obviously a countless amounts of large football games in his life. He's not going to walk into a Week 15 matchup, where the stage is going to be too big for him. So as much as it hurts, obviously, the amount of guys that you're losing, Andrew Berry and company have done a fantastic job of, the reinforcements they've brought in here. It's very rare that you get name value reinforcements that start coming up to the roster Week 15 in injury scenarios for teams. But of course, the Browns being 8-5 with all the injuries and all the changes they've had to this point is really just, it's probably the story within of itself, because there's never really been a team that's gone through this stuff. But look, this team all year long, and, when you're not good, when you're not successful, this, win the week, just get to 1-0. It does come off as kind of corny. But for the Browns, look, it's working. It truly is working, because this is how it's kind of getting them through these muddy waters. I think they kind of look around Sunday, 9 a.m. and say, all right, well, this is the 48 we got. All right, boys, let's go out there and do what we got to do.
Yeah, along those lines, Joe Flacco will start his 3rd game. That will equal the amount of games a quarterback has started consecutively for the Browns this season. This is kind of interesting. So Okunrankwo is definitely out for the Bears game, but he's got a torn pec. He's trying to get a second opinion to see if he needs season-ending surgery or if he can be back. So, again, you're getting guys that are trying to fight through and find a way to get on the field and help the team. And that's why Okunrankwo could just say, yeah, let's get the surgery. He's trying to find out if he can come back and play.
Well, this is part of, what I loved about what Andrew Berry did last year. You chased so many guys with playoff experience. You chased a lot of guys with Super Bowl rings. Agbenai Okunrankwo, one of those guys. Certainly Juan Thornhill with 2. These guys know what this time of year means. And, even, as much as people don't want to credit to it, even when Deshaun Watson, found out about the fracture in his shoulder, his first thought was, is there any way I can get through this? I'll do what I got to do, to make sure I can go every Sunday. Nobody, and I remember talking about this with former Browns linebacker Joe Schobert years ago. When things aren't going well for a team, when you get to that point where, hey, this could be a 6 to 8 week injury, and you're looking at the calendar and you're like, well, you know what, then, man, I guess that's it. Whereas, other guys, when things are going well, say, well, I want 6. I want to be back here. I want to be back here, to at least, fight these last couple of ball games with my guys. It's obviously the injuries for the Browns have been significant, and it's not a lot of lingering injuries. Maybe Denzel qualifies, maybe Miles qualifies, but a lot of these guys have just been put out. Nobody wants to tap out when your team is doing well. Nobody wants to be placed on IR. Nobody basically wants to be put in, like teammate Siberia, because there's only so much of the team you truly are when you go on to injured reserve. So these guys are going to do everything they can to fight for each other, everything they can to be there for each other. And, Agbo, he's been here before, as far as circumstances like this, games like this, runs like this. And, these guys, and we see it every Sunday when these guys are mic'd up or the camera's on them, the relationship these guys all have with each other. They like each other. They generally just enjoy playing with each other. Nobody wants to be the guy that gets told, that part of this year is over for you.
So the other thing that's happening, Ethan Posick will miss the game. So Nick Harris, he of the fullback fame, now is your starting center. Kevin Stefanski talked about Nick Harris.
We talked about Nick this week. He's a guy that we trust. We've won with Nick. We know what it's like with him in there. He plays at a high level, plays really hard, a smart player. So we have a lot of trust in him. His teammates have a lot of trust in him. As you know, you're right in the center of it all. And he does a great job leading that, because there's so much communication that takes place there. So you really don't miss a beat when it comes to communication.
So you're also going a little deeper in your offensive line, because you would assume they'll still do something that's big personnel and try to find a way to run the football that way.
And again, though, Dave, we talk about this. This is Nick Harris's 4th year with this team. For his first 2 years, Nick Harris, even when he was a rookie, even in year 2, we all remember J.C. Tretter. He was a great player, but J.C. Tretter showed up on Friday. That's all his body allowed him to do. So Nick Harris was basically the understudy who did everything but perform in the actual games. Then we went to last season, 2022. Ethan Posick was brought in, but it was Nick Harris's job to lose. You get to the first preseason game. Unfortunately, Nick Harris goes down, blows out his ACL. Ethan Posick basically took the job and ran with it, and obviously gave Nick Harris no real chance to battle for it for this year. But it's not like Nick does not know the system. This is still the same offensive line coach who's been here when Nick was drafted. This is still the same offensive coordinator. This is still the same head coach. So again, you're putting in a guy who should be a very capable replacement for what you lost. Again, it's difficult. Obviously, we know how good Ethan is. You don't want to get to the point where you're playing with 2/5 of your original offensive starting offensive line. But, it's not like they were world beaters running the ball anyway over the last few weeks. And obviously the cohesion there and the amount of guys going in and out is probably a big, big issue why the run game is not having success. But, there's also things that teams are going to say, we don't have much to look at. They don't have much film on Joe Flacco. They don't have much film of an offensive line of Nick Harris, who can pull from the center position, Jerron Christian, James Hudson. So, yes, it's a detriment and it certainly hurts. But, it's really difficult for teams to totally exactly know what the tendencies are, because things can certainly change and there can certainly be more added to the offense as Joe Flacco, goes under center for his 3rd start Sunday.
So Myles Garrett talks about all the injuries to the Browns' defensive line. They lose Maurice Hurst, Jordan Elliott, not sure if he's going to be able to go, Okunranko out. Here's Myles Garrett on all the injuries on the line.
It's a loss. And like you said, more ways than one. Those are good men, they're good people, good leaders as well. They've been great teammates in their time here, and I look forward to them coming back and being around in any capacity they can. But their presence won't go unnoticed. Those guys were dynamic. They were making some big plays for us. But we'll just have to step up in other ways. Guys like myself, Jordan, Dalvin, all these guys will have to step up and try to elevate ourselves to replace what they had going for themselves.
So, Jeff, this is where, that 8-man rotation that Jim Schwartz really works. You've kept the snaps down for the guys that are now going to be asked to stepping up. The other thing is, and I know you've dealt with this on your podcast, on the Locked On Browns podcast, there's still a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball.
The Browns are probably going to activate Siaki Ika for the first time on Sunday. He was a top 100 selection. They picked him. They valued him that highly that they took him in the third round. He was a top 100 selection. Isaiah McGuire was drafted right in the same range as Juwan Jones. I think it was like 105, 107 or something like that. So it's not really that uncommon to believe that, in your rotation, granted they won't be starting, that your third round pick and your fourth round pick can be somehow contributing. Most likely you're replacing three bodies in the defensive line unit on Sunday. As we all know, Maurice Hurst, obviously, off to, IR, season-ending IR. Ogbo, we know, will not play. Jordan Elliott with the concussion, you don't really know. I'd rather the Browns actually not force Jordan Elliott out there this week. So then that means you're dressing McGuire, you're dressing Siaki Ika. You brought Sam Kamara onto the active roster. Sam Kamara can kind of come on as like the 3.5 defensive tackle, maybe the 4.5 defensive end. He's got a weird body type at about 6'2.5", about 285. So he could maybe give you some of what you lost in the middle with Maurice Hurst. But it also gives him an opportunity to have 5 edge-type players on the roster. And we do know that Jim Schwartz has liked to play a lot of NASCAR this year. And a lot of times he had 4 defensive ends on the field at one point. And you think that's something he probably would like to have that luxury to do this week with the mobility of Justin Fields.
All right, so Myles Garrett also talked about comments about the way Kevin Stefanski is kind of coaching his rear end off.
As far as just taking a different kind of a role, knowing that I gotta trust my guys and their decision making, kind of put it a little bit in our hands, but encouraging us to be the best that we can be, and that sounds like something a coach shouldn't always do, should and always does, but it hits a little bit different though when your back's against the wall in the game and you're like in a third and short situation. It's like, should we go for it? And he comes to his guys. He's like, y'all want to do this? And he takes our lead. He takes our opinion into matter. Or he comes to us on defense. He's thinking. He asks him what we're thinking, or what kind of rushes are working. How can we get you open? Stuff like that. He's really been real advocate for us, and stuff like that goes a long way.
Is that a little different than how it's been?
I mean, he's always been for us, but I feel like he, just like we elevate and mature and take it to another level. Coaches can too.
Very interesting comments from Myles Garrett relative to the way there's the interaction between the defense and Kevin Stefanski.
Well, you got to think for the coaching staff, you're on your toes every week. There's no way anybody's going to get complacent right now. There's no way anybody can maybe get stuck in a rut, or, they just keep putting out, because every week you're basically reinventing yourself on the fly. We saw that last week, obviously, the David Bell touchdown. We saw it with the first touchdown to David Njoku. Even the second touchdown, hey, this is a team that's ultra aggressive on the run. So you know what? Let me throw them basically a play action trap pass. Oh, guess what? The linebackers bit because they're ultra aggressive. Now you've got 85 David Njoku running loose in the secondary, and there is no secondary player in the NFL who wants David Njoku with a head of steam running at them to actually really give a solid effort to try to get him to the ground. So you've got to kind of be creative. Your juices are flowing. Like, all right, well, this guy's, and oh yeah, all right, but you know what? This guy does this well. Let's try to find a way to incorporate. All right, you know what? We used to do this. We haven't been doing this so much anymore. He's a good puller. Let's, we're going to emphasize that. This is something he does well. James Hudson, he blocked well down. So when we ask him to down block, he does it well. Let's use that to our advantage. We can pull Joel out to do the kick out. We got the pin, we got the pull, and hopefully we can get some yardage that way. So it's a lot of coaching right now that has to be done. But, late in the season, and look, this isn't the easiest gig in the world. But, the fact that they're, basically highly motivated to be successful every week. And, hey, this week I got to be better than I was last week, because now all of a sudden I'm down a couple more guys. And, Jim Schwartz, is obviously, a very, very competitive guy. And, I still got 95. Well, guess what? If 95 leads to other guys getting sacks because he's pushing quarterbacks either up in the pocket or out of the pocket, waiting other arms of, edges on the other side. Let me just continue to do that because at least, I'm bringing now in guys in week 15 in Ika and McGuire and Kamara who are like ultra fresh. Nobody's healthy. Nobody's 100% healthy in week 15, but the Browns are bringing guys up who truly are 100% healthy right now.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back.
Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, my name's Colby, calling from British Columbia, Canada. I have a comment. You watch on the sidelines, Joe Burrow hurt on the sidelines. Justin Herbert hurt on the sidelines. Then you see Deshaun Watson up in the premium boat with his girlfriend. He's never there with the team. Just want your comment on that. Would you please address it? Thanks.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, a lot of people, and this is not new, a lot of people made a big deal about it. Watson asked to be on the sidelines the first week he was done. The Browns didn't want him on the sideline because they don't want him getting run into on the sideline and getting hurt. It's as simple as that. The other guys have casts on their injuries. He's a little bit further along on his rehab. He's in L.A. rehabbing. It's really not a big – everybody's making it a big deal. It is not a big deal. He was told not to be on the sidelines.
Well, and to be fair, if you're not playing, I really don't care where you are. I don't care if you're sitting in your living room. I don't care where you are. You're not playing. But the other thing is, what happens? You get uber excited, and the next thing you know, the athlete in you takes over, and all of a sudden you're leaving your feet trying to chest pump. So, you know what I'm saying? Chest pump. Look, it just doesn't matter. If you're not playing, I don't care. And the other thing is, whatever the situation is for right now, look, I doubt Joe Flacco's really looking to sit down to talk to any quarterback when he comes off the field.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 39 years old in January. Deshaun, PJ, DTR. I mean, I don't think any of these three guys are going to tell Joe Flacco something that Joe Flacco doesn't already know.
Right. All right. Browns defense the last 5 weeks has taken a little bit of a hit. Is it time to be concerned? Ryan Clark, former Steelers defensive back, answered that question on ESPN's NFL Live.
The Browns' defense was dominant during the first half of the season. That's not been the case, though, lately. After the last 5 weeks, the Browns have allowed nearly 27 points per game, sixth most in the NFL. Making matters worse, it was announced yesterday that the Browns' leading tackler, safety Grant Delpit, will be out for the rest of the regular season with a groin injury. You hate to hear that. And RC, how concerned are you about this Browns defense?
Glad Grant got his money before this happened. I am very concerned about this defense because it's hard to replace good players. You lost Rodney McLeod. Juan Thornhill was hurt. Now Grant Delpit is on IR. You also think about Denzel Ward being banged up and a guy like Myles Garrett not being at 100%. It's a reason people get paid hundreds of millions of dollars to play their positions. It's because they're really dang good. And now that they aren't playing as elite of a level and they're also trying to replace those guys while having the film out of the way Jim Schwartz is trying to attack offenses, it's been very difficult for these teams. And so I don't believe they'll be at the back end of defenses in the league for the rest of the season, but I don't think we'll see that sort of dominance we saw early on.
And Jeff, that's probably a fair assessment. Now, the one thing is now Jim Schwartz will likely adjust to what the league has adjusted to.
Didn't this team just force Trevor Lawrence into 4 sacks and 3 interceptions last week? I mean, the Jaguars are a good team. They're going to score points. They're going to get yards. Like, some of this is, are they playing at the pace they were, where 2 games out of the first 3, they held teams to under 100 yards? Come on, that was not sustainable. We all know that. And look, you guys are just a little bit more generally tired this time of year. and a little bit more banged up, and the offense at times should be ahead of the defense. But this just gets to a point here, where we're trying to emphasize everything. And you want to know what? Yeah, you can try to say, oh, well, I think they're going to fall off a little bit. Well, with the amount of injuries and the fact that they are down to safety 4, 5, and 6, and a big part of their interior defensive line is out. They might have 2 parts of their interior defensive line out. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's safe to say that they're all, their defense is going to, fall down just a tad bit. But in the same respect, we're not talking about the fact that we have a quarterback that threw for, 5 touchdowns over the last 2 games. You got to weigh everything out in equals. And look, I don't think the Browns care which side does it, whether it's the offensive side of the ball, whether it's the defensive side of the ball. I just think the Browns want to find a way to make sure that when that final gun goes, the Browns are ahead on the scoreboard.
So Myles Garrett talked about the quarterback the Browns will be facing, Justin Fields, and what has changed with him since the last time they saw him was his first NFL start a couple seasons ago. It didn't go well at Cleveland Browns Stadium for Fields.
Him and that entire offense has evolved. His timing, his pocket presence, figuring out when he needs to run, when he needs to pass, and looking at his reads. And if he doesn't see it, he's going to use his legs. I mean, last time we played, he wasn't really. He was trying to stay in the pocket, trying to deliver passes. I don't think he really had the timing down, knowing that the non-turnover clock is going, especially with good rushes on the other side. And now he kind of has that feel. It's like, all right, it's not here, there. Let me use my God-given ability and get out of here.
How tough does he look? I mean, it's been a while since it looks like it's really hard to bring down. Does it feel like that's an extra kind of dimension of his game?
I mean, it's always been like that. He's strong, and he reminds me personally, athletically, like Jalen Hurts. So he'll be difficult to take down, but best way to take someone down, the easy way is take the ball from him.
And Jeff, Fields is playing better since he came back from that thumb injury a few weeks ago as well.
And that first start, if everybody goes back to it, Justin Fields, they didn't decide on starting Justin Fields that day. They had to start Justin Fields that day. The other starting quarterback was injured, so they basically passed the baton. But Justin Fields is kind of similar to what he did last year. He kind of closed the season out strong. The Bears are going to be one of the most fascinating teams to watch this offseason. We'll be holding the first overall pick. We'll be holding a second first-round pick as well. Do they make a commitment? Because this would be when you pick up Justin Fields' 5th-year option. There's a lot going on with the Bears. But no, they are starting to play better. The relationship between Fields and Moore is really starting to develop. In the beginning, it was a bunch of, screens and short routes, and DJ Moore using his athletic ability to create yards after the catch. Now it's a little more vertical, and they have a little better in sync. And maybe this would have come sooner if Justin Fields didn't get injured. The Bears technically are still in it. Their next loss most likely is going to end any possibility for them getting into the NFC wild card. But they're playing, and they're an overall improved product right now. And certainly, for the Bears, it's going to lead to some weird decisions and a lot of talking, a lot of decision-making that goes on in the offseason. But this team, look, you just beat the Detroit Lions. This team can play tough. They can kind of play all 3 phases of the game. They're by no means a slouch. And I would be a lot more concerned about this game if it was in Chicago. But with it being in Cleveland, I do feel a little bit more comfortable with it.
All right, this is from ProFootballFocus.com. Off-season questions for all 32 teams. For the Browns, will they extend Amari Cooper? Cooper will turn 30 this offseason, making a long-term deal riskier. Still, Cooper has been a phenomenal addition to the Browns, has graded above 70 each of the last 2 seasons. There's still time left on his contract. I wouldn't be surprised if they extended him. They don't have another option at wide receiver.
Well, the other thing is, and could you imagine, other wide receivers in the NFL with Amari Cooper's ability and what we might be hearing from them if they had to go through 4 quarterbacks in one season? Look, these guys get chirpy regardless of who their quarterback, even if he's great and things aren't going their way. Amari Cooper, and to his credit, look, it was, the scar tissue early in the year. It was the ribs. It was and Amari Cooper's out there each and every week just doing his thing. I think he holds a really, really strong position here where the Browns, most likely don't have a choice. You're not confident enough in Elijah Moore yet to say, oh, he's wide receiver 1. You certainly, I think you're just hoping to this point he can solidify himself to at least be wide receiver 2A or 2B, although I think the potential is there to be greater. Cedric Tillman, you're not sure where you're yet with him. And another one, I mean, imagine being a rookie wide receiver, and every time you turn around, there's a new QB1 for your team. It's got to be really, really difficult to develop that way. And again, no first-round picks, so you're not – I mean, great wide receiver class coming out this year. I don't know how well the Browns are going to sniff one if they end up drafting in the 50s or even higher than that, depending on how maybe they do in the playoffs. I think, they're kind of their hands kind of forced to bring Amari back for a year. But I think he truly, the player that he is, the way he carries himself, the teammate he is, this is the kind of guy the Browns want to keep around because, they don't want the flashy, loud, they don't want the flashy, loud wide receiver. They want the guy who shows up every day and just goes about his business.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast, and now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk a little bit more in depth about the Browns-Bears matchup. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
What's the difference between this current Cleveland Browns team, like in this moment, with Flacco and everybody, even with the injuries and stuff, and the Philadelphia Eagles team that won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles? I understand that we are more injured than they are, but outside of that, great defense, got some weapons, got a veteran quarterback, also a weird year. Kansas City ain't a superpower right now. The Bills is down. Bengals is down. We just beat the Jags. So there's really nobody in the AFC that I'm scared of, even in the NFC. So this could be our year.
Fair question. Jeff, I would say that the Eagles, other than the quarterback, so they lost Darren Sproles in late September. They lost Jason Peters, Jordan Hicks, late October. They lost Carson Wentz December 10th. Other than that, they didn't have too many people on IR that were of consequence. That's drastically different than your fourth and fifth tackles and your fourth and fifth safeties. So they went further into their depth. That's all. That's what I'm saying.
And not to mention you've had to play 4 quarterbacks. And not to mention the basically most renowned running back in the NFL as well. So certainly the Browns are in a little bit worse situation. But again, I don't think anybody they're playing cares. I don't think anybody in the NFC is going to care. You just got to go about your business. And look, you can't control what you can't control. And I saw something the other day. The Browns got to fire their trainees. Look, it's a game. It's at the end of the day, it's a vicious game. It's a very, very physical game. In a perfect world, you're not supposed to take guys who are 300 pounds, have them run as fast as they possibly can, and run into each other, pads or no pads. Sometimes you get the roll of the dice, and there's certainly been plenty of Browns teams that were healthy for 16 games and they couldn't accomplish anything. The key has been that you've put together a really, really solid roster. And then you went even further with it and went the avenue of a Joe Flacco. And hopefully a guy like Deron Harmon is going to pan out. And again, you have draft choices that have barely played this year who are significantly high draft choices. And you're getting those guys into the fold now. And maybe where, they weren't totally confident in everything they would have had to do week 1, week 2, week 3. By week 15, these guys should be pretty well coached up. They should be very, very, comfortable within the playbook, within what their role is when they're called upon it. And so, it could be tough, and it's, I don't want to sound like I'm just saying, hey, none of this matters that these other guys are out. But, normally when you lose these amount of guys, we're getting to the point of who is this guy? Where did he play? Where did he come from? But a lot of these guys that the Browns are bringing in and putting in, they're either high draft choices or, they've been veterans, that waited their time for their number to be called. And a lot of successful teams have done that in years past, waited on the guys who still, basically hung out on the couch till about November or so. And the Browns are just basically doing what other good teams have done in the past.
Justin Fields, a Bears quarterback who will face the Browns on Sunday, was asked what he sees with the Browns defense.
They have a lot of talented players, on defense. Of course, their D-line is a talented group. Their linebackers are very athletic, very fast. They have very good instincts in zone coverage. On the back end, safeties and corners, of course, are definitely top in the league. So it'll be a great test for us this week, and everybody's excited for the opportunity. But definitely a talented defense for sure.
How do you prepare for a guy like Myles Garrett?
Just see what he does well, and which is pretty much everything. But just have a plan for him, going into the game, and execute that plan.
So, Jeff, how concerned are you with Fields? He's a mobile quarterback. Mobile quarterbacks have given the Browns some trouble this year.
It's certainly not the most ideal thing, but look, if the Browns can do what they can do and set the tone, and be the hammer, not the nail, the Browns have been aggressive, and they have gotten plenty of quarterbacks to get off their rhythm, get off the fold. You go back to the second meeting with the Ravens. Lamar Jackson completed one pass in the fourth quarter. He played quarterbacks with bigger names, bigger success rates in this league than Justin Fields currently has. It's a big start probably for Justin Fields. This last 4 starts for Justin Fields are probably really, really big. But the Browns are no fools. They know they are sitting at the top spot in the wild card. They know that there are a lot of teams one game below them, and there's like four, maybe 5 of them just sitting there battling it all out. And it's going to be a war attrition. And some of those teams are just not going to win every single game. But the Browns know the importance of this one. You got 4 left, 2 at home, probably where you play extremely, extremely well. Houston, who knows? Houston's got a cascade of injuries right now as well. A bunch of guys will not be playing next week. They always play well against Cincinnati. You got to look what's in front of you. You can't look to the side. You can't look to the past. You just got to do what you can do. Justin Fields for them right now is basically just another guy, another face across the line of scrimmage that they got to go get after. And look, they've been able to get after and get in the heads of some really, really good quarterbacks this year. And Justin Fields, and just for them, it's just another opponent. And he doesn't have the weapons that probably even the Browns have through their passing game. So I'm sure they are well aware of what he can do with his legs. But, the plan is the same. Get after the quarterback, force him off his timing, force him off his footwork, force him off his reads. And, amount of times we saw quarterbacks throw the ball right into the dirt, kill some worms against the Cleveland Browns this year has been a lot. And that is obviously the game plan. It'll always be the game plan for Jim Schwartz and his D-line.
So the Bears defense has been very good at forcing turnovers, 11 of them last 3 games. Kevin Stefanski on the Bears defense and that ability to create turnovers.
They're taking the ball away. They're 11 in the last 3. I think it's 9 interceptions in the last 3. I think they intercepted Minnesota 4 times, Detroit 5 times in their last 2 games. It's tip balls. It's making plays on the ball. It's zone defenders being visual on the quarterback. They have great ball skills throughout their defense, so it's definitely a part of certainly their success recently. It's also a part of their scheme. They're playing a lot of visual zones and doing a very good job. So it's really important that your entire offense is keyed in. It's not just the quarterback. It's everybody from running the routes at the proper depth to having great protection to the offensive line when it's time to get the defensive line's hands down. That's as important as anything.
So the Browns have a league-high 27 turnovers, and this is an interesting note. Of those 27, 15 have resulted in opponents scoring points off them in total. Browns have yielded 97 points off of turnovers. More than 1/3 of the points they've allowed this season have come off of turnovers. So, Jeff, right there, how do you win? Don't give them the ball. That's when you're down men, that becomes even more. Everything is magnified when you're down people that you're missing.
Well, you look at those 9 interceptions. Josh Dobbs, and look, we all know what the stories were and what everybody wanted to create. He is now currently the Minnesota Vikings number 3 quarterback. Jared Goff, a West Coast kid, plays for a dome team outside in December in Chicago. So, yeah, those numbers look good. But, in my opinion, they also look a little inflated. Joe Flacco is not going to be fazed by the weather in Cleveland on Sunday. That's not going to bother him. He did have a bad interception on Sunday, so much so that his son even called him out on it and asked him what exactly he was thinking or what exactly he was looking at. But this is not something, oh, no. Ball security is preached each and every week. And granted, it's not improving for the Browns. I do wonder how much playing 4 different quarterbacks does have to do with that. PJ Walker obviously had a high turnover rate. All of them have been guilty of it. Obviously, Joe had a fumble last week as well. But you're hopefully always striving to tighten that up. But as far as the 9 interceptions over a 2-week period, you can say those numbers, but then when you get a little deeper into the context of those numbers, maybe the questions start to, and the results start to maybe get a little diluted.
All right, let's look at it. Before I let you go, let's look at this. What do the Browns need to do? If you're going to break it down, 1, 2, and 3 or X, Y, and Z, what needs to happen for the Browns to get a win and get their 9th win and go 1-0 on the week, as they like to say?
If they're not running, you just got to give it up. Last week was a prime example. You were up 21-7. And you tried running, it didn't work out. In a situation where Jacksonville got the ball back, Browns defense couldn't do anything about it at that point in time. You've got to find a way to keep your foot on the gas pedal. I absolutely keep emphasizing they need to start running the football better. But if they can't, then the heck with it. It's you're wasting your time. You are spinning your tires. This team needs to do what is best to find a way to close out games and continue to put points on the board. If that means throwing the ball because the running game is not yielding the return that you need it to, it's just that simple. That is what the Cleveland Browns need to do.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Everybody, happy holidays, and we'll see you all sometime next week.
Sounds good. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Lance Reisland joins us. Video breakdown, film analysis, what the Browns need to do against the Bears to come away with a win. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready for that Sunday matchup, Cleveland Browns Stadium against the Chicago Bears. Time to take a little video analysis, film breakdown of some of the things the Bears like to do. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Lance, 8-5, a chance to get to 9-5 and get a step closer to clinching that playoff spot. Goes without saying, this one, got to have it at home.
Yeah, Browns are 6-1 at home. It's funny when you talk about the injuries. Obviously not the injuries, but in terms of how they're preparing for this, and the fans feel a lot better, a lot worse than the coaches and players feel. When you go down and watch a Browns practice, those guys think they can win, and Kevin Stefanski, in my opinion, does just an awesome job of getting these guys ready to play. When you go watch a practice, it doesn't matter who's practicing. Those guys think they belong there. They don't feel like they're backups. Everybody's a part of that team. And that's a credit to Stefanski. And you're right, this is a game they got to have. They do have some injuries, but they've also built a lot of depth. And they've built a lot of depth that has played a lot of football now. And I think they have to have this. They got a couple things they got to do to win this game, but this is the game they should win, and I think they will.
When you talk about the Bears, the team that's won 3 of their last 4, and offensively, a really good combination between their quarterback, Justin Fields, DJ Moore. And I know we're going to take a look at a couple of things. Take us through this first clip, what you like and what you see here.
So, everybody talks about, Justin Fields being a runner, and I actually don't think his design runs are very good. He doesn't have a ton of success when he's the primary ball carrier from the huddle. What he's really good at is the read game, the zone read game, and scrambles. And this is what he does really, really well. A formation that really scares you here scares you this week coming in is this empty set, because he can run the ball like a tailback, and he's starting to throw it really, really well from the pocket. I think they've kind of figured out that Justin Fields needs to move to be successful, but he can also be successful from the pocket. They've kind of managed it and kind of created this offense that's very, very good for him. He's their leading rusher. He's their leading passer. And this is what the Browns need to stop here. This 3rd and long, 3rd and medium, and they've got to make sure they account for Justin Fields every time.
And important to note, they are 5-8, but Fields missed a chunk of games in the middle there. Is back and obviously ready to go. All right, you mentioned some of the ways they use him. Take us through this next clip, what we see here with Justin Fields.
So last couple games, last week as well, they went in this pistol a bunch, and it's just a true zone read. And they run a little bit of counter, a little bit of power, but they're a zone team. And this is just a true zone read. And here's the problem that the Browns face sometimes with the zone read. You want Justin Fields to give the ball to these tailbacks. Give it to give it to Foreman, give it to these guys that are good, but not Justin Fields good. And what the Browns do is the Browns chase the back, and then they replace with the linebacker on the quarterback. And that kind of fits into the attacking scheme. What they really want to do is they want to feather this by the end and make Justin Fields give the ball every time. Now, if they're going to do, and I love that fact Jim Schwartz sticks with what he does, but they have to make sure that they account for him every single time. If you go back to the Denver game, in that big drive they had, they did 3 or 4 zone reads, including the touchdown run from Russell Wilson. That was all read game. So they got to make sure they account for Justin Fields on every play.
Yeah, and big difference with the athleticism of Justin Fields relative to what you saw from an older Russell Wilson. So that, without question, Fields is a threat with his legs, but he's improving from the pocket. Take us through this next clip and tell us what you think is important defensively here for the Browns.
So when you remember Justin Fields playing, especially the last couple of years, he's had really happy feet. And this is an example of how much better he's got in the pocket, but still using his feet to his advantage. So he drops back here. They're going to run a little play action off the toss, and you're going to see him. He's going to move to his left and then reset his feet. And this is what he's doing very well this year. He has fluid, active feet, but they're not panicky. They're not happy feet where he gets himself off balance. And this is a credit to his coaches, and this is a credit to him on the improvements he made. But again, this is movement that is not running necessarily, but you have the scramble runs, you have the zone read, and then you have this movement within the pocket. 2 things need to happen. Browns need to make sure he stays in the pocket and pass rush. Then they need to make sure that they stay connected in the secondary. They've had some issues this year with quarterbacks scrambling and throwing late to receivers. Justin Fields holds onto the ball longer than any quarterback in the NFL, so those secondary guys need to cover longer than they have.
Well, and that's really a good point. So he holds the ball longer, Lance, but it's not in the pocket. He's kind of moving by in time and allowing his receivers to get open. And when you talk about receivers, he's got a pretty good one that the Browns could really use Denzel Ward with and DJ Moore. Take us through this next clip and what you see with Moore.
Well, Moore is really it's really just a simple pin and pull, and they do a really good job of making sure he gets touches. So he has 76 receptions for over 1,000 yards. He also has a number of rushes. This is just a simple pin and pull. They fake a little reverse here with with Fields at the quarterback, and he just runs a pin and pull for a touchdown. He's remarkably strong. He's big and strong, so he gives you a little bit of that Deebo Samuel. He gives you a little bit of Amari Moore in his route running. He is an elite, top-flight, #1 receiver in the NFL, and I think that's also part of Justin Fields' progression of getting better, is that now he has this top-flight guy. Extremely good runner with the ball, extremely explosive when he catches it. He's a very heavy guy. Browns need to make sure they locate him. This is the 1-2 punch. Cole Kmet's a pretty good tight end, but this is a 1-2 punch with Justin Fields and DJ Moore. These are the guys that Browns got to focus on.
All right, so those are the skill position guys that are, they can be a problem. This next clip, take us through what you think the Browns can do to counteract some of that offensive power.
Well, right now, if I look at a weakness, right now the Bears, their guards really struggle inside. Now, they're aggressive guys. They really struggle with lateral movement. And what a lot of teams now do are taking that really hard rushing defensive end the Myles Garrett types, and they're moving him inside to the guards because the guards naturally don't move as well as the tackles. Well, the Bears tackles really struggle with that inside short area quickness, lateral movement needed in pass protection. Also in the run game. So I think the Browns, with their injuries up front, I still think Myles Garrett's going to move down inside a lot. I think Zadarius Smith is going to move inside. I think the Browns have great depth inside with that defensive line, even though they're having some injuries, and Obo probably won't play, obviously, with the Pack. But the Browns really have an advantage against these guards with the 3 and the 2 eye technique. So I look for the Browns to attack in there, especially on passing downs.
All right. The other thing that you flip over, what do you see an area where the Browns might be able to attack this Bears defense?
So for the Browns have faced a number of odd teams in a row, meaning that the center and the guards are covered, and it's an odd front, and there are different variations of the odd front where you cover the tackles or cover both guards. But the odd front tells you that the center's covered. And what teams have been doing, because the Browns run zone so much, is they've been putting a five man down a lot. And what that does with zone, it doesn't give you any double teams. So what they're going to see this week is they're going to see their first 4 front, their first true 4-down lineman front, which means they can get their double teams going again on their zone. And this is a classic example of it right here. This is just a split zone inside, and you're going to see the movement on those tackles. And what it does, no matter how good those tackles are, in Billings, they got some good guys inside as well, Sweat on the end, and they got some really good, heavy guys. But when you line up on the guard, both guys will line up on the guards. There's a great double by the center and the guard, and a great double by the opposite guard and the tackle. Deuce and ace doubles, they're called. And you just get great movement because of where they're lined up. And this is kind of what the traditional defense that you see. This is the defense they've seen all camp with their own defense. So look for the Browns to get into this inside zone and run the ball directly at the Bears.
When you look at the Bears defense, we heard yesterday from Joel Bitonio, they do a lot of the games with the ends and the tackles and the stunts. What does that enable the Browns to do relative to the movement that the Bears defensive front creates?
Well, sometimes when you run gap schemes or down schemes, down and kick schemes, and they're stunting and moving around and twisting and backers are coming, it can be hard because you're not sure who has who. When you run that zone, what helps with that zone is that you're stepping to an area with your guy. You're assuming that the guy's going to be there, but if not, you still step there. So they step towards the double team, and then they move to the second level. Whoever goes to the second level depends on where the second level guy goes. So the Browns are, that zone is very, very good against all that movement. It's good against the forefront. The Browns are going to have a lot of success running the football directly at the Bears this week if they stick with it, which I think they will.
When you look at the keys, obviously you don't want to turn the ball over. This is a defense that they've had. The Bears defense has created 11 turnovers the last 3 games, and turnovers have been a problem for the Browns offense. Other than that, what do you think a key is? If this goes well for the Browns offense, they should be in pretty good shape.
Well, they got to get Edmonds, the middle linebacker block. Came from Buffalo. He was a pretty big signing. He's really good. He's the leader of that defense. He's the Mike backer. He makes a ton of tackles. Bisker is their safety. Both their safeties, Bisker and Jackson. They're both guys kind of like a Delpit, where they can play down in the box. They can play coverage. They're real aggressive. I think the Browns can attack their corners. Tyreek Stevenson played a lot last week, and he really struggled with the vertical deep route. But all their corners struggle with vertical routes, and I think the Browns can get them with double moves and things of that nature. So the corners can be beat. Both safeties are really good. They're aggressive. They got to get Edmonds blocked. They got to get that zone game going because they haven't run it a lot because of the odd fronts they've been seeing. They got to shorten the clock. I say this over and over. They got to end every drive with a kick. They don't turn the ball over. They punt it. They kick an extra point, or they kick a field goal. They should win this football game.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always good video analysis, film breakdown, cleveland.com, as well as The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got Mary and Bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Earlier today, Kevin Stefanski talked about the challenge of facing Bears quarterback Justin Fields.
He's doing a nice job. I don't know if it's related to the time that he was out with the injury, but he's doing a nice job. He's a huge threat with the ball. I think he understands he's trying to take care of himself maybe a little bit more and not take those big hits. But he's big, he's fast, he's strong. Everything runs through him. He's extremely dangerous. He has our attention. We've worked real hard this week to understand the ways in which he can beat you.
Is he comparable to Lamar? I mean, is there a comp there in terms of?
It's hard to compare guys. Just in general, you don't want to do that. I would just tell you, Justin Fields he's got great strength, play strength. He's fast. He can throw the ball to all areas of the field. They utilize him really well, whether it's on schedule in the quarterback-driven run game or it's off schedule. He can make plays. So, again, he's a huge challenge.
With that, let's welcome in John Macri from PFF, fantasy football analyst, co-host of the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. John, how good has Justin Fields been since he came back from that thumb injury a few weeks ago?
He's been much better, right? And that's been the main thing for the Bears offense, and getting the ball to his star playmaker, DJ Moore, has been the biggest key for him, right? So getting that yards after catch yardage, basically, it was something that he didn't really get last year, and it's something that he's been able to utilize and take advantage of with DJ Moore on the roster this year, and that's been just a huge part of their offense. So him being able to do that has allowed their offense to click the way that it has when it does when they are playing well.
So let's take a look at the last 3 weeks. The highest graded offensive players from PFF for the Bears. Number one is the guy you talked about, DJ Moore, 83.2 grade. Then the left side of their line, both of them above 73, right around 74, left guard, left tackle. Fields is, the guy that's ranked fourth, and then Cole Kmet. So how effective has the offense been, and what areas do the Browns really need to be concerned about?
So, like I said, the main thing I think is going to be trying to limit DJ Moore, right? He has been their biggest weapon, and the thing for him too is that he's dominated man coverage, right? So the Browns play the most man coverage in the NFL. DJ Moore has an 89.1 receiving grade against man, which is 7th best, 4.26 yards per route run, which is 3rd best against man coverage. The good thing for the Browns is that they're one of the best man coverage defenses in the league. So finding a way to limit him, hopefully Denzel Ward is back. That would make a big difference there for sure. But that would be the key thing. The other part of it is Cole Kmet. So between the two of these guys over the last 3 games, they've combined for 60% of the team's offensive targets in the passing game. So they're the huge parts of this offense. Obviously not having Grant Delpit at safety to try to help take away Cole Kmet is going to be a problem. But JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, has stepped up recently. He's been playing a lot more snaps. So potentially has the capabilities to kind of take away Cole Kmet, while the rest of the defense can focus on DJ Moore.
As you look at it, is there an area on the line that the Browns can try to expose or take advantage of, exploit, if you will?
Yeah, it's really that right side of the Bears offensive line, right? So Darnell Wright is their right tackle over there, and like you pointed out, Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, their left side of the line has been much better, which is typically Myles Garrett's side of the line. Now, when they're in their pass rush formations and on those key third downs, Myles Garrett does move around, and they'll move him to the inside and face off against some of those, the right guard and the right tackle a little bit more. So that would be the best area to take advantage of. I mean, it's Myles Garrett. He's matchup proof for the most part, right? So you're not too concerned about him. It's Za'Darius Smith who should be able to take advantage, who's going to need to step up on that other side of the line there and beat that right tackle and that right guard.
So what have you noticed from Garrett? Has he been slowed down by the injury? And I guess we could expand it to the entire defensive line. When you look at the Browns, what have you seen from the defensive side of the ball?
Well, the main thing is, again, that man defense has been so successful for them. They've been, they have one of the best defensive success rates in the NFL when it comes to man coverage, which is really hard to do. So they've all kind of stepped in and contributed in that way. And then, like you said, Myles Garrett, I mean, I know that he's been dealing with the shoulder injury, but it hasn't really hampered him either. He's been elite still. He's coming off a huge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, where I know he didn't get a sack. Well, he did on a 2-point conversion, but it doesn't count towards the sack totals, unfortunately, for the year. But a dominant performance by him with 7 pressures. So their ability to get pressure has been a key thing as well, right? And Obo Okoronkwo has been a big part of that. But unfortunately, he's done for the year. But it's not like Zadarius Smith has been bad either. I know he's I think has less sacks than Okoronkwo this year, but more pressures, more effective pass rusher on a play-to-play basis. So need him to kind of really step up. And the way that defensive interior has played has been excellent as well. So those have really been the key strengths for me.
So when we flip sides of the ball, looking at the Bears defense, we've said it a couple of times already today. 11 turnovers the last 3 weeks. So they're getting it done on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at their PFF grades, who stands out for you? Who are guys that the Browns need to be aware of?
Yeah, far and away, it is the top guy on the list there. It's Jalen Johnson, their outside corner, who those are his grades from the last 3 weeks, 91.4 overall. That's been the norm for him all season. He's our highest graded corner this season with a 90.6 defensive grade, and that includes a 90.9 coverage grade, which is also first among corners. He's going to be the guy you want to avoid. He doesn't allow a lot in his coverage. He doesn't necessarily shadow either, so he moves around the field quite a bit, playing left and right, similarly to Amari Cooper. So that would be the kind of thing to take advantage of for the Browns if they're looking to avoid Jalen Johnson, potentially maybe attacking the rookie cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, who is significantly worse in coverage, 48.2 coverage grade this season, and has allowed 557 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns on 81 targets, so among the highest numbers in the league there. So that's the thing to be aware of, I think, are those outside corners for Chicago, knowing where the strength is and where the weakness is.
So Yannick Ngakoue broke his ankle, not going to play. How big of a loss is that for the Bears defense?
It's a significant one in that he played a pretty big part of their rotation. He's not necessarily the as effective as a pass rusher as he once was. A pretty down year for him across the board. So they're going to need guys like Montez Sweat, DeMarcus Walker to step up. And Montez Sweat definitely has, but DeMarcus Walker arguably has been slightly better than Yannick Ngakoue this season. So, Ngakoue really more just a threat as a pass rusher. So losing that has been the biggest, I think will be the biggest thing for Cleveland's success here on offense, is just not having that threat to have to deal with and focusing more on Montez Sweat.
So this is from ProFootballFocus.com. Week 15 matchup to watch for the Browns and Bears. They have Browns right tackle James Hudson versus Bears edge rusher Montez Sweat. And you see it has not been a great grade for Hudson. When you look at this, how important is this matchup, and how far does this go in determining if the Browns can get a much-needed win, get their 9th win?
It's going to be a big key, right? You need Joe Flacco to have some time to get the ball out, because I think it's something that the coaching staff's going to be well aware of. They know that there's really only one real threat on that defensive line for Chicago, and it is Montez Sweat, who's been heating up here lately. 2 of his best pass rush grades of the season over the past 2 games. And he did it against really good offensive lines in Minnesota and Detroit. So I imagine that Harrison Bryant, the tight end for Cleveland, who has been an excellent pass blocker this season, I think he should be out there helping James Hudson and company quite a bit, like you said, to try to limit Montez Sweat, try to bring a little bit more attention to him and slow him down, because he's absolutely the one that deserves that attention the most for Chicago.
Have you seen Sweat kind of? That's a guy that the Bears traded for, trade deadline deal. Have you seen him kind of get more and more integrated into this defense and become more of a force?
I think so for sure. Yeah, over the past few games, especially, right? And when they traded for him, interestingly enough, like coming from Washington, where there is a lot of threats on that defensive line, he was leading the NFL in cleanup pressure rate. So really kind of picking up the pieces from what his teammates were doing for him. Whereas coming here to Chicago, where there's maybe not as many threats on that defensive line to worry about, he's really had to kind of do it himself, and he's quickly kind of acclimated, like you say, to the defense and has still been able to be a pass rushing threat and be effective on a down-to-down basis. So that's been nice to see for them, who a team that just gave him a pretty decent sized contract.
John Macri from Pro Football Focus, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
John Macri, make sure you check him out, especially with fantasy football playoffs underway, PFF's Fantasy Football Podcast. He is the co-host. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4, talking all about that Browns-Bears matchup. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.